Hello guys, welcome back. This is Mahesh and welcome to lesson 4th, which is network security group of our module 4th about virtual networking. Okay, before starting this lesson, there has been a lot of emails that I've received over the past week asking me about the book and the PPT. So due to certain reasons, I wasn't able to upload that link. But after the end of this course, once all the modules and all the lessons of this course is done, once we are completely done with AZ-103, be assured that I will be going to give that link to you from where you can download the book as well as the PPT. But the book and the PPT will be available to only those people who go to that link and fill any kind of form which is available over there. And once you fill that form, then you can send me the screenshot and you can get the book, right? So that will be available to you after we complete this course. Okay, all right, so lesson 4th is about network security group. So what is network security group? How do we create rules within it? What are effective rules in NSG? And then a small demonstration on how to create NSG rules is what I will show to you. So if you look at the PPT, it says with the help of NSG rules, you can limit network traffic to resources in a virtual network using an NSG. Think of network security group as a firewall. Okay, let's suppose you have a virtual machine where you want to, let's say, enable incoming traffic on port number 443. Let's suppose you are running a web application over there, right? In that kind of scenario, in Azure, what you will use NSG. So NSGs are nothing. NSGs are more or less like a firewall where you can define rules on ports and protocols which can either allow a traffic or deny a traffic, right? One very important thing over here is an NSG can be associated to a subnet or a network interface. To make you understand more, I'm going to my paint and I'm going to show you a diagram here. Okay, let's suppose this is my virtual network. Within the virtual network, I can have multiple subnet, but here I'm having one subnet. Okay, and within the subnet I have let's say this virtual machine. Okay, let's create two virtual machines. Okay, so these are my two virtual machines which are available within this subnet of mine. And within this two virtual machine, let's take a very basic example. Let's suppose I am hosting a website. Okay, so let's suppose this is my website, which is https or http, whichever you want to have, abc.com. Okay, which I have hosted on these two VM within my subnet, right? So let me name it as well. This is my VNet, and within the VNet, this is my subnet. Okay, now somebody from outside of your VNet, that means he might be in a different VNet, he might not be on he might be on a different network entirely. He might be accessing it from on premises or from any network. All in all, he is not part of your virtual network and subnet. The request is originating from somewhere else. So let's suppose this is the person who is trying to access your web application, which is https abc.com, right? So he goes to his browser and he writes the address https abc.com. So what will happen in this scenario? abc.com is hosted inside your VM1 and VM2, which is a part of subnet that you have here, right? So your request, which is coming from a person who is writing abc.com on his browser, should come to these two VMs, right? To allow that this request come to abc.com like this, right? What do you need to do? See, you are accessing the website on HTTPS. HTTPS, if you all remember, works on port number 443. Correct? The website could have also been on HTTP. HTTP works on 80 port, but here we are using HTTPS. So HTTPS works on port 443. That means for this website to be accessible on this outside VM, let's call it outside VM, what do you need to do? You need to make sure that this request, this particular port 443 and protocol HTTPS is allowed in an incoming way. So this is the incoming traffic, right? Why? Because there is a VM which is outside of your network, outside of your virtual network subnet, and that machine is trying to access abc.com, trying to access your website. So this abc.com request is an incoming request to your VM1 and VM2, right? So this is incoming traffic. So in incoming traffic, you have to allow HTTPS so that this outside VM can access abc.com. Now, once this request is generated, there comes the role of network security groups. Now, network security group says that we can be applied at two levels. The first level network security group can be applied is a subnet level. The second level where it can be applied is an NIC level. So that's your subnet level NSG. Right? So in this subnet level NSG, I am saying allow HTTPS on port 443. This is something that I'm allowing in here, right? What will happen in this scenario? If I apply a rule at the subnet level, by default, that rule will be applicable to all the VMs within that subnet level. That means if I allow HTTP at the subnet level, both VM1 and VM2 will have 443 enabled within themselves. The incoming traffic will be allowed for VM1 and VM2, both of them, because both of them are part of subnet on which the NSG has been applied. That's one level of implementing network security group. The second level of implementing network security group is at the NIC level, right? So you remember I told you in previous classes that every virtual machine has a network interface card, right? Network interface card is attached to the VM, and IP addresses, the IP addresses through which you access your VM, they are not attached to the VM itself, they are attached to the network interface card, right? This is something that I've told you before. So what does network interface card has? Network interface card has the IP address of the virtual machine. Okay. So in this case of in this scenario, if you allow HTTPS at the subnet level, all the virtual machines within the subnet will automatically have that rule allowed, whichever you have allowed. But NSGs can also be applied at the NIC level or the network interface card level. The NIC level and NSGs are individual NSGs for individual virtual machine. Okay. So this is the NSG for VM1, this is the NSG for VM2 applied at the NIC level. Okay, this is NSG at NIC level 1. So this is for NIC 1 and this is NSG for NIC 2. Okay, and here if you can see, subnet level NSG always is the first NSG which will be checked, because if you look at the incoming connection, how the incoming connection is being happening. First of all, the request will be checked at the subnet level, then it will go to the NIC level. The traffic will be checked at the NIC level. Now, this NSG will have its own rules. The NSG at the NIC level will have its own rule. That means even if you allow HTTPS on 443 and you create a new rule at the NIC level which says deny HTTPS 443 for, let's say, NIC 1, for VM1 HTTPS or port number 443 will be not allowed, even though it is allowed at the subnet level. Why? Because this rule overrides the rule that you have written at the NSG level. Correct? So few things in here. Point number one, there are two level at which NSGs are applied: subnet level and NIC level. Subnet level is a broader level which applies the settings to the entire subnet, and NIC level NSG applies the firewall or applies the rules at the NIC level only, or at the individual VM level only. Okay, for a rule to be allowed, it has to be allowed at both the sites. It has to be allowed at the subnet level as well as at the NIC level. If the rule is denied at any level, the rule will not be allowed. For example, if I do the reverse of it, if I say deny HTTPS at the subnet level and then I say allow HTTPS at the NIC level, what will happen in this case? In this case also, you are already denying the traffic at the subnet level. So that means bypassing 443 will not happen at the subnet level itself. So even if you allow at the NIC level, that won't matter because the traffic is not passing through your subnet. You have denied it over there. There is no point of creating an allow rule at the NIC level, right? So for a rule to to work, to allow a rule, the allow should be at both subnet and NIC. And if you just want to deny a rule, it can be at anywhere. You can deny it at the subnet level as well as at the NIC level. But remember, whichever rule you apply at the subnet level, that rule is applicable to all the VMs within the subnet. But the rule that you applied at the NIC level, it is applicable only to that particular VM, not to the entire VM of the subnet. That is very important to you, right? This was incoming traffic. Just like that, we have outgoing traffic from these VMs, right? Outgoing traffic also requires to have network security group rules, right? Now what can be an outgoing traffic? Let's suppose these virtual machines wants to access internet, right? So these virtual machines want to have access to the internet. So to allow access to the internet, I would create an NSG which will allow them access at the subnet level as well as at the NIC level. Okay, so that is there. That is what NSGs are. NSGs are applied both at the subnet level and the NIC level. And make sure you know that if a rule is denied at any place, it will be overall denied. For it to be allowed, it should be allowed at you can say at both the levels, NIC uh, as well as your subnet level. Okay. Okay then. Now let's move on and see what actually do we have in here. Okay. There is one more thing that I wanted to show you in here. Okay, I'll show you later on. Let's go ahead. So this is something that I've already told you. So what are NSG rules? These are security rules in NSG that enable you to filter network traffic that can flow in and out of virtual network subnets and network interfaces, just like what I've told you. So incoming traffic rules are known as inbound security rules. Outgoing traffic rules are known as outbound security rules. There are default security rules. You cannot delete the default security rules, but you can add other rules with a higher priority. Okay, let's see what are these default security rules in here. Okay, so I'm going to my Azure portal, and if you remember last time I created a VM, right? When you create a VM, I told you a lot of things are created automatically. For example, you can automatically create a network interface card so that your IP address is assigned to you. It automatically creates a virtual network and subnet within which you have to deploy your virtual machine, all those things. So when this VM was created, it also created a network security group for it, right? So this is the network security group that I am talking about. So I can go directly to this network security group by clicking on networking and then either checking the network security rules from here, inbound and outbound, or I can click on this name, which is VM1-NSG. That will give me access to the network security group directly. That's one way of doing it, of checking it on an existing VM. Otherwise, you can simply write network security group in here. If you want to create an entirely new one, you can go over here, click on add, and give it a name. Let's say test NSG. You can put it in any resource group you want. You can put any location based upon your requirements. So as of now, you should understand what a resource group and location is, right? Because I have already explained it to you. So when you create a virtual machine, a network security group is automatically created. But you can also create a network security group on your own. So I've just initiated a request to create a network security group. It simply asks you for the name, the location, resource group, etc. Nothing more. And since I'm creating a new security group, new network security group, it won't be attached to either a subnet or an NIC. It won't be attached because I'm creating a standalone NSG here. If I was creating a VM, in that scenario, an NSG will be automatically created and attached to the VM itself. But let's see in here, I have created an NSG. This is the NSG. And if you look at that NSG and if you look at the overview page, you will see by default some inbound security rules and some outbound security rules are automatically created. So what is that and why they are automatically created? And if you try to click on them and try to delete them, they are not available. It says default security rules cannot be deleted. Let's see one by one what these security rules are and why they are so important. Why Microsoft creates these security rules by default. Okay, to understand this, you first have to understand how or for which purpose this network security group default rules are created. So you can see that every rule has a priority. Some has 65,000 priority, 65,001, 65,500, etc. What is priority? A priority in a network security group rules determines whether a rule is whether the rule has higher importance or lower importance. For example, let's go back to our paint in here. Okay, let's suppose I created two rules. First one is saying allow HTTPS 443. Second one is saying deny HTTPS 443, and both are at the same both are created at the same NSG and at the same subnet. So in this subnet level NSG which I'm talking about, if I create both allow and deny rule, which will take precedence, allow or deny? That depends upon your priority. If I create deny on a lower priority and allow on a higher priority, which will take precedence? The deny rule will take precedence, because as a general rule, lower the number of priority, right, higher will be its precedence, right? So priority is more or less like ranking system. So first rank is always considered higher than second, right? Similarly, 100 priority is always considered better than 110 or has more precedence than 110. So lower the number of priority, higher will be its precedence. So in this scenario, if I give deny 100 priority and allow 110 priority, which will have precedence? Deny. So deny rule will be there. So when you create your rules inside your on-premises environment, inside your Azure environment, be very sure that you look at the precedence of the rule as well. Sometimes what happen, I've seen this a lot of times, people say, okay, I have allowed that rule, even after allowing it, it is not working. What will be the reason for that? The reason might be that you might have created another rule with lower priority, which might be, stopping it, which might have higher precedence. So it's not like that you have created the rule. Make sure you put it at the right priority as well. Okay, that's one thing. Okay, now if you can see in here, there are priority which is 65,000, 65,001, 65,500. So by default these three priorities are here. Okay, let me go back in here. So in these three priorities, which one have the highest one? The 65,000, then 65,001, then 65,500. Okay. Now let one by one, let's see what these default security rules are doing. The first inbound security rule says allow VNet inbound. That's the name of it. I can click on this and it says port any, protocol any, source virtual network, destination virtual network allow. What does it mean? It says source is virtual network, destination is virtual network, any port and any protocol is allowed. It simply means that within a virtual network, all kind of communication which is happening is by default allowed. Okay, this is something that I have told you before as well in the virtual networks part. In virtual network, all kind of communication which is happening within that virtual network is by default allowed. That means if you look at that, this VM1 can talk to VM2 without any need of creating any separate rules. Why is it so? Because of this NSG default rule which is created. Every virtual machine that you will create within a virtual network, all those virtual machine within the virtual network can communicate with each other without any problem. Why? Because of this default security rule. But I have also told you that these default security rules can be overridden. They cannot be deleted, but they can be overridden by creating a rule with lower priority. In the case of route table, I have shown this to you, user defined route. So let's talk about default rules again. Default rule says within the virtual network, all kind of traffic is allowed. That's the default rule. Second rule says allow Azure load balancer inbound, any Azure load balancer, any allow. What does it mean? It means from Azure load balancer to any destination also, all traffic is allowed. So the second default rule says from Azure load balancer is a service which allows you to create load balancers. So from load balancers to any destination, all kind of traffic is by default allowed. Incoming traffic. That's the second rule. The third rule says deny everything else. Okay. That means if you create a VM on Azure for the very first time, these three inbound rules will appear. That means if you are hosting any HTTPS website on your VM, will it work? No. Will you be able to do RDP onto that VM? No. Will you be able to access any database on port 1433 from outside of virtual network? No. All of this is blocked, right? Remember, if you're accessing anything from outside of the virtual network, it will be by default blocked except of the load balancer and except when you are accessing it within the virtual network. That is the reason why if I go back to the network security group of my VM1, that is the reason why in inbound security rules you will see I have explicitly created an RDP rule. Why? Because mine was a Windows VM and by default the rule doesn't allow me to access anything because everything is blocked. Everything is blocked in deny all in inbound, right? So there I needed to access my virtual machine by accessing it through RDP port number 3389. So there I created this rule explicitly. If I delete this rule, however, because this is the rule that I have created, I can delete it. I won't be able to RDP. Why? Because RDP port is not there. RDP port is not allowed, right? So always remember this, that if you want to give access to a particular VM on a particular port and protocol, for inbound as well as for outbound, make sure you do it on the NSG. Going back to the test NSG again, there is second rule which says allow VNet outbound. These are outbound rules now. So what traffic is going out of the NSG that you have created. That means going out of the virtual machines or the subnet that you have created. Allow VNet outbound. Just like all incoming traffic within the virtual network. If any traffic is originating and incoming within the virtual network, it will be allowed. Any outbound traffic is also allowed. That's why I said in a virtual network, all communication is open. Within a virtual network, all communication is open. Why? Because all incoming and outbound traffic within the virtual network is by default allowed with the NSG. Second rule is allow internet outbound. That means within a virtual network, by default, a virtual machine has access to the internet. This is something that you should know. Whenever you create a virtual machine on Azure, by default that virtual machine will have access to the internet, because by default rule says allow internet from any port, any protocol, any source. Destination will be internet. They should be able to access internet. Okay, but in some use case scenarios, you might want to create a virtual machine that do not want to have access to the internet. What to do in that scenario? You cannot delete this rule, right? You can simply create a new rule with lower priority and say deny internet. That rule will actually deny your internet access, right? So if you do not want to give your virtual machine access to the internet directly, you can create a lower priority rule in here, which will bypass this rule, which will override this rule. Now this NSG is created, but it is not attached to anything. Like I said, it can be attached to a network interface. If you attach this to a network interface, these rules will be applicable to a virtual machine, because network interface card is attached to a virtual machine. If you attach it to a subnet from here, it will be applicable to the entire subnet, which means all the virtual machine in that subnet will have the same rules. So I'm going back to my virtual machine 1 NSG, and if you look at the network interfaces, you can see it is attached to the network interface card of the VM. And if I go to the subnet, you see subnet it is not attached to. So if I look at this VM1 NSG rule, this rule is applicable only to the VM1, not to the entire subnet. Okay, so always remember that network security group which is applied at the subnet level is applicable to the entire subnet, which is available at the network interface. It will be applicable only to the certain machine. Okay, now let's test something. Okay, so I have VM1, this is up and running, and I will connect to it, and I will download the RDP file. I don't remember the username and password, but I will try. Okay, um, maybe I need to change the password because it has been a long time. If you forgot the password of your username, you can reset the password from here. And update. Okay, meanwhile, while I'm showing you this, there is one more interesting thing that I can show you, which is run command in here. Okay, a run command allows you to run a lot of different things in a virtual machine, like running a PowerShell script, enabling an admin account. You can do that. A lot of different things you can do from here. But the best way, but the one that I wanted to show you in here, this is not in course, just that I wanted to show you something else as well. Meanwhile, while we are resetting our password, is set RDP port. You know that RDP works on 3389, right? But what if you want to RDP on a different port? Maybe you don't want to use 3389. Maybe for RDP you want 2289, okay, or 8991. Okay, let's suppose I want to RDP on 8991. So I will simply run this command in here. Okay, what this command will do, what this run command is actually going to do, it is going to change your port from 3389 to 8991 for RDP. That means I'm using my custom port here. Okay, so what will happen in this scenario? So for security purposes, what we do is sometimes we do not use the well-known ports. Sometimes we make our own custom ports, right? So in that kind of scenario, if you want to use your own custom port for RDPing into a machine, you can change your RDP port from here. You can write any value in here that will become your RDP port. But remember, if you change your RDP port, you have to RDP along with that port. Okay. So after changing this port, this has been completed. You will see it says get RDP port number, setting RDP port number to 8991. So my RDP port has been changed to 8991. So to access this virtual machine now, I have to go to the virtual machine, get the public IP of the virtual machine, go to my remote desktop, write the IP followed by the port number that I have, colon and then port number, because by default it will tell me that you go to 8991 port only. You shouldn't go to 3389 port. So if I remove this and if I try to access it, it won't give me a connection. Why? Because 3389 port I've changed to 8991. I'm saying I want to RDP to 8991, so it won't give me any pop-up for writing my username and password. Now if I go with my 8991 port, then it will allow me to have access to my virtual machine. But here comes the question. I have changed my RDP port, right? From 3389 to 8991. But if I go to my NSG still have the rule which is 3389. Does it have any rule for 8991? No. So will I be able to access my virtual machine? No. So you have to add an inbound port rule now, which will be so there are two kind of rules that you can write. Basic, in which you simply have to define your port range, your priority, your name of the port, and you simply have to select your service from here. So I want to select it for RDP, and by default you can see it has taken the RDP port. If you want to allow HTTP, it will by default give you the HTTP port, right? So very well-known services, very well-known protocols you can select from here, and it will automatically create a rule for you from here. But mine one is a customized port, so I will be going to the advanced version, and then I will say from any source, because I would be able to access my virtual machine from anyone. Source port range can be anything. Destination is what? Destination is my virtual machine. So I can write the IP address of my virtual machine in here. What is the IP address of my virtual machine? It will be available to me from here. Okay, let me check from here. So this is the private IP address of my virtual machine, 192.168.1.4. I'll go back in here. From any source and any port, allow access to 192.168.1.4 on port number, this is destination port number 8991, because I am accessing my virtual machine on port 8991 as an RDP rule. On which protocol? I can say any, what do I want to define, or whether I want to allow it or deny it. I will say allow. Now priority, I will make sure the priority is not in lower precedence to any other different priorities. Since I only have one rule for this, I will be giving it the default priority which it is taking, and some name which makes sense. So RDP 8991, this is the name that I'm going to give to it. Now when I will try to access my virtual machine, it will work on 8991 port number. Why it will work? Because now I have explicitly granted an inbound connection or an inbound traffic to RDP port 8991 from any source and any protocol to the destination 192.168. Okay, let's test this. So I'll be writing the public IP of my virtual machine, which is 40.170.63.54 and then colon 8991. Hit enter, and now I will be able to connect to it. Let's check it. Alright, let's write my username and my password, and there you go. Why I was able to access this virtual machine on port 8991? Because I've changed my RDP port to 8991, and then I have explicitly mentioned the rule to allow access to 8991 port. So any kind of incoming traffic that you want to define, you have to create a rule for this, and make sure you check out the priority. Make sure there is not another rule which have higher precedence or higher priority, and which is overriding the rule that you are creating. If that is good, you will be able to access it. Similarly, you can see that I have access to the internet in here, right? It says network connected. So if I go and browse Google on this website, I will be able to do this. Why so? Because in the outbound security rules, it was mentioned that it has access to the internet, right? Now it was a default security rules, and I told you that I won't be able to change it. But let's suppose you want to make sure that your virtual machine does not have access to the internet. What you can do, you can create a rule which can actually override it or bypass it. So right now if I access google.com, oh sorry, yeah, you can see that internet is working, right? I can go and access google.com. Why? Because outbound connection is working in here, outbound traffic is working. But let's go in here, let's go to outbound port rules. It has internet, I cannot delete it, but I will add outbound port rule. From any source, any port ranges, destination is my virtual machine. So one second. Okay. Source. So in this scenario, this is outbound, going out from my VM. So the source will be my VM. So I will be writing the IP address of my VM, which is 192.168.1.4. Source port ranges from any port, because I'm defining the traffic originating from my VM going to the internet. Okay, so source is my IP, port range can be anything, destination will be, which one in this scenario? It will be internet, right? So let's say you have to use service tag in this scenario. I'll tell you what service tags are later on, but you have to use service tags. So destination service tag, there are a lot of service tags in here. You might want to know what service tags are, but wait for a while. I'll tell you what those are in the upcoming modules. So destination, here select service tag. Automatically in destination service tag you will see internet. Destination port range, I say block internet on all the ports. So I will say star in here, just to make it simple, right? Give it any priority which is lower than 65,001. I can also give 64,000 priority in here. Okay, sorry. These are the default rules with highest priority. So your priority should be between 100 and 4096, but lower than 65,001. So I will choose the highest priority which is available for me, 4096. But 4096 is still lower than 65,001. And I will say deny internet. And what do I need to do in here? Action should be denied. And I will say add. So now what I have done is I have created a rule with lower priority. Remember, the rule that you can create can range from 100 to 4096 in priority. 100 means highest priority, 4096 means lowest priority. But 4096 is higher in priority than 65,001, and it is a deny rule, so it will do what? It will block the internet access on this virtual machine. Let's see. Let's access google.com. Okay, right now it is coming. So wait for a while. No internet. Let's open this. There you go. Let's see if I am able to access google.com or not. This page cannot be displayed. Why? Because I have a rule which has higher precedence than the default rule. So if you wanted to make sure that you bypass the default NSG rules, make sure you create a rule which have higher precedence or lower priority than the existing ones. Okay guys, so this is what NSGs are all about. Okay, so there are default security rules. You cannot delete the default rules, but you can add other rules with a higher priority. Okay, Next thing is, what are effective rules? This is something that I have already told you about. I told you there are NSGs which are applied at the subnet level and at the NIC level. An allow rule must exist at both levels for traffic to be admitted. If even at one location the traffic is said to be denied, it will be denied. So if you have applied your NSG both at the subnet level as well as at the VM level, in my case, my NSG was applied only to the NIC of the VM. So I didn't have to make separate rule for subnet. But in your scenario, when you start working on Azure, in your scenario, you will have one NSG applied at the subnet level, and you might have individual NICs at the VM level within the subnet. That will happen when you start working on Azure in an organization, because each VM has its own set of rules as well, which it wants to allow or deny, which will be different from the subnet. So what kind of rules you will allow or deny at the subnet level, which will be common to all the virtual machine, but virtual machines will have their own individual rules as well, right? For example, let's suppose you have a subnet. There are 10 VMs in that subnet. At the subnet level, you said allow HTTPS. It will be allowed for all the VMs. Let's suppose 3 of the VMs out of those 10 do not want HTTPS. So rest 7 will say allow HTTPS at their NIC level. The remaining 3 will say deny HTTPS at their NIC level. So now, even though the subnet is passing HTTPS for all 10 of the machines, 3 of them are explicitly saying no, we don't want HTTPS access. Do it for the other 7, and the other 7 will explicitly says yes, allow it at the subnet level. We are also allowing it at the NIC level. Okay. So what are effective rules? Effective rules tells you what actual rules are applied. You can also check the effective rules by going in here, effective security rules, and then you can find out what are your effective security rules applied to you. So basically what effective security rules tells you is they match the rules at your subnet level as well as at your NIC level, and they match them and see which rules will be applied finally to your VM. Okay. Creating security rules I've already told you about. So first of all, you can either create a security rule in a basic format or in a advanced format. If you are going to the basic format, I told you 4 options will be available to you. You can select any known service, HTTPS, RDP, LDAP, anything. Then a port range. What is the range of a port? You can write single port over there, or let's suppose you want to give a range. You want to give a port range of 1000 to 1500, right? So individual port number you can write directly. If you want to give a range, write the starting dash the end of the range. So if you want to give a port range between 1000 to 1500, write 1000 dash 1500. That will be the entire range of port which will be allowed. Priority I have already told you about. So this is network security rules. I have already told you everything about it, right? But if you have any questions about the network security groups, please do let me know. And that brings us to the end of module 4th. In the next video, I will open up some review questions for virtual networks, and I will show you their answer as well, and I will explain to you why the answer is so and so. Alright guys, so this is all for today's class, right? I hope you enjoyed what NSGs are and you will be practicing it as well. So alright, that's it from my end, and I'll see you in the next class. Thank you. Bye bye.